Hello, everybody, and welcome to October. Let me ask you a question. What are your top 10 franchises? From, let's say, the big publishers like Nintendo or Sony or Xbox or anyone else that you would like to add. If you really sat down and made a list of the top franchises, the top 10 franchises, what would that list look like? Well, I decided to take on that challenge for myself, and I wanted to discuss in this video and some of the upcoming videos my top 10 franchises for some of the big publishers out there, starting with Nintendo. This list was super tough to make, let me tell you. I left off so many beloved franchises: Donkey Kong, Star Fox, Animal Crossing. Man, so many just got left out. But what are my top 10 franchises? Let's start with number 10. I am a big fan of RPGs and I'm a big fan of puzzles. And when you combine the two into one complete package, you get something like a Paper Mario game. I have played and beaten many games in this franchise, and really there's not much to complain about. I really like the battle mechanics. I love the puzzle solving aspects, the different powers, the creative ways that you use Mario to traverse the world. It is really so much fun and a blast to play. I recently completed Paper Mario and the Thousand Year Door, and it was pretty much everything I had hoped it would been after hearing people talk about it for ages and ages. I never had a GameCube, so I never got the chance to play it, but finally, after all this time, Paper Mario A Thousand Year Door was done. And even Paper Mario the Origami King that people don't seem to like, I thoroughly enjoyed. I just like puzzle type games, I like RPGs, and when you like that combination, you're definitely going to enjoy Paper Mario, which is the case with me. It is the month of October, so why would I not mention Luigi's Mansion? It is really a classic at this point. The first Luigi's Mansion was released on the GameCube, and I guess caught a lot of people by surprise because they were expecting a more traditional Mario game, but what they got was a really creative and unique way to play something a little bit different than your typical platformer. Luigi's Mansion is a little bit more slow-paced, has a lot more puzzle-solving elements. The game has a really cool combat mechanic where you suck up ghosts and basically, I guess for lack of a better term, collect their power, whatever it is. But yeah, Luigi's Mansion is just such a unique title. Once again, some of the common things that I like about this: puzzle solving. Puzzle solving is a huge aspect in Luigi's Mansion, and for regardless of which game you play, whether the original Luigi's Mansion 3, which in my opinion is the best, or even Luigi's Mansion 2 HD, also known as Dark Moon on the 3DS, are all top-notch games, which is why I believe this franchise deserves a spot. Now, I specifically said Nintendo published games, not necessarily games made by Nintendo, but ones published by Nintendo. And one franchise that I had to put on here was the Bayonetta series. I am so glad that this franchise got saved and got brought to at least one console, if not all of them. Yes, the original Bayonetta was published by Sega and was put on multiple systems, but ever since that, we have had Bayonetta 2, 3, and of course, it's called, I believe, the Cereza or something, Stories or whatever it is, the offshoot. I have not played that one. Bayonetta 2 and Bayonetta 3, in my opinion, are the top games in this franchise. Both of them outstanding. I personally prefer Bayonetta 3 a little bit more than Bayonetta 2, but you can't go wrong with either. Some amazing hack and slash combat, great boss battles, beautiful graphics, a solid main character, some solid supporting characters, a great leveling up system. Everything about Bayonetta just screams that old school, classic PlayStation 2 style of gameplay, which I absolutely love. And Platinum Games, when their A-team works on a game, it shows. And this was definitely work done by their A-team. Next up, let's talk about Mario Kart. Mario Kart is a no-brainer, pretty much. Everybody knows about it at this point. And while Nintendo does not have a lot of racing franchises out there, the one they do have, in my opinion, matters the most. Mario Kart is one of the most popular franchises, one of the most popular arcade kart racing games out there, and that's for a very good reason. When you play a game like Mario Kart, you are going to get a very well-balanced, beautiful, entertaining racing experience that really can't be replicated elsewhere. Many people have tried, and some have done a better job than others. I'm looking at you, Sonic All-Stars Racing. But still, when it comes to talking about the best in the business, I think none of them will top Mario Kart. At least they haven't yet. Maybe they will in the future, but for now, this franchise reigns supreme and easily makes my list. We have Pokemon to talk about next. What a great franchise. What a great series of games. And I'm talking about the mainline Pokemon games. I guess you can put Arceus in there too, it's kind of like a mainline. I don't know, it's debatable, whatever you want to call it. But I'm talking about the more traditional mainline Pokemon games in general. I absolutely love them. I've already said this several times about Pokemon, but it's one of those series where it's really, really easy to pick up and play, but really complicated to master, and I absolutely love that combination because it's accessible to both casual and hardcore gamers. And Pokemon really does this magnificently. It kind of blends in a little kiddie, cartoonish, sort of a kid-friendly character-grabbing mechanic. But deep down inside, when you look at the mechanics and you look at all the different combat systems implemented within the games and how certain enemies are weak or strong against other, it is a really deep system, well implemented. Of course, some of the newer games are a little bit more controversial because, people didn't like them because of the graphics and performance, which is fair. I personally love them. But yeah, Pokemon is just a franchise that keeps on giving, and I'm glad that it's still very, very relevant and really happy to put it on my list. A Nintendo list would not be complete without Mario. And yes, I'm talking about the traditional Mario platformers. Whether they're 2D or 3D, I kind of wanted to combine them into one because while I do admit that they're sort of different in terms of their stylistic approach when it comes to the platforming, the overall mechanic is still platforming. So whether you are into 2D Mario or 3D Mario, I think you're in for a great time. Personally, I just think that Mario has gotten better and better over the years as a platforming franchise, and that is a really, really hard thing to do because the original games that came out way back on the NES, SNES, are really, really well made. But I think as we have progressed, as Nintendo has brought out more entries, sure, not every single one of them is that top tier game that we all enjoy, but I think a lot of them, if you look back and see at all the ratings for the games, the critic reviews, and of course the user reviews, you will find that they're consistently very high. The standard has always been high, and Nintendo has pretty much always delivered on that high standard, and I absolutely love both 2D and Mario 3D platformers. As I'm sure many of you are well aware by now, I absolutely love RPGs, and you cannot talk about Nintendo franchises and RPGs without mentioning Xenoblade Chronicles. Now admittedly, I've only played Xenoblade Chronicles 2 and 3, but even those two games are enough to convince me that Xenoblade Chronicles is easily one of my favorite franchises from Nintendo. I absolutely love the open worlds, the lush environments, the unique combat system that is heavily based on a timing system that rewards you for strategic gameplay. It is surprisingly deep. It feels like it's automatic, but that is definitely not the case. But Xenoblade Chronicles, whether you've played 2 or 3, you're going to find a very engaging, deep storyline, serious tones, definitely some solid characters, and some great boss fights, great villains. In the case of 3, some amazing job systems, really some outstanding music, especially for 3. I absolutely love some of the soundtrack themes in there. But yeah, Xenoblade Chronicles. I still need to play the first one, I still need to play Xenoblade Chronicles X, and I still need to play whatever else Nintendo releases whenever they do release it. But Xenoblade Chronicles, easily makes this list. So we're now down to the final 3, and coming in at number 3, Metroid. I honestly was missing out. I had not played a Metroid game in quite some time. As a matter of fact, the first time I played and beat a Metroid game was on the Nintendo Switch. And when I did, I realized that this franchise was made for me. I'm talking about Metroid Dread was one of the first games that I played, and then as soon as Metroid Prime Remastered was announced and released, I played and beat that and thoroughly loved it as well. So much so that now I consider Metroid to be one of the top franchises, and it's a day one must play for me whenever the new Metroid is released. I think that Metroid is one of those franchises that kind of fills in the void for Nintendo. Nintendo has a lot of kid-friendly games, a lot of the Kirby's and Yoshi's and stuff like that, but Metroid is, at least in my opinion, one of the more challenging franchises that you will find within the Nintendo library of games. Especially challenging if you're into, boss battles for one are really engaging, really cool, and definitely, pose a bit of a challenge. But also in terms of just completing a map, Metroid is all about completing the map 100%. And while some challenges or some power-ups, I guess I'll say, are pretty straightforward, others, even when you do get them, getting to those secret locations is quite a challenge. I guess that kind of falls into a tougher platforming category, I don't know. You guys decide. But yeah, Metroid is just a blast to play. I guess no pun intended. But absolutely love every aspect of it, whether it's 2D or 3D. Definitely one of my top franchises from Nintendo. Coming in at number 2, we have Zelda. Do I really need to say more? Some amazing releases in Zelda. Whether you are a fan of your classic top-down adventure style of Zelda gaming, whether you're a fan of a full-fledged 3D Zelda gaming experience like the Breath of the Wilds or Tears of the Kingdoms, you are going to have a magnificent adventure when it comes to Zelda. Sure, at times the games are not 100% perfect. Some would argue that some of the earlier titles are a bit light or a bit easy on the combat element. Fair enough. Some of the latter games are a little too... They just have mechanics that are annoying, like the breaking weapons and stuff like that. But which games are fully perfect? There really aren't any games out there that exist that are like perfection. But when it comes to as close to perfection as possible, I think that you can put Zelda in that category. And honestly, I cannot wait to see where Nintendo takes this franchise next. Even if they decide to deliver on the same formula, which is, the Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild formula, for their next entry on their next console, I'll be more than glad to accept that and play through that entirely. I absolutely love the Zelda franchise. This was another franchise that I got into late. Late being, I guess I beat my first game on the Switch, but when that happened, an avalanche of Zelda games got beaten. So naturally, I played a lot more, beat a lot more, and here I am, ranking Zelda as high as I am on my best franchises list. Coming in at number 1, this will be a shock to many, but hey, it is my favorite franchise, Fire Emblem. I absolutely love turn-based tactical strategy RPGs, and there is not a single Fire Emblem game out there that I have played that I have not enjoyed. I love the franchise, love the series, love every single entry, and it's just my type of game. I like that style of combat, I like the characters, I really enjoy the story at times. Sometimes the story is a little bit over the top, and I understand that. But when it comes to tactical gameplay, there is no game out there that does it better than Fire Emblem, in my opinion at least. And there are just so many classes, so many characters to choose from, so many jobs. Everything about this game is so amazing. I am replaying Fire Emblem Engage. I have already beaten Fire Emblem Three Houses 4 times. I'm working on my second playthrough with Engage. There's just so much to love about this franchise. Number 1, in my opinion, Nintendo franchises, for me of course, that is pretty much a day one pick up and play for me. And folks, with that, that is my top 10 Nintendo franchises. What are some of yours? Like I said, some big ones got left out, but I didn't have room to put them. Splatoon, Donkey Kong, Star Fox, F-Zero X. There are just so many great franchises from Nintendo. All the Mario Sports series, Smash Bros. Man, the list goes on and on. But yeah, couldn't put them all. So, let me know what are some of your favorite franchises. As always, thank you so much for watching. I'll talk to you guys next time.